got some on my sleeve. Did you hear how sad that was?
I did.
I'm not going to redo it, but that was terrible.
What did you get on your sleeve?
No, like when I went to clap,
you
it's like
clap part of
the
your
sleeve got into the.
I thought, yeah, okay.
That's a bad omen, man. If I believed in superstition at all, I'd be really worried about this.
I thought you meant you got some girl on your sleeve because that was weak.
Wow. So you heard it here first. Clay believes all women are weak. His words, not mine.
Oh my goodness. I got
Which,
a lot of friends.
We could argue from a scriptural standpoint, but
yeah, I got a lot. I got to stay away from that one.
Yeah, well, there's no way to stay away. You said it, brother.
No, I said I thought that's what you said.
No.
I didn't say that I would agree with that. I would actually be repulsed.
You knew.
If that's what you really meant.
You knew that's not what I said.
I'd actually be very repulsed if that's what you meant.
So, Clay is sexist. Let's just leave it at that.
Welcome to the Jesus Cartel.
Andrew Skull and Sexist Clay. Back at it again. What's been going on with you, man?
You know, man, I've been cold.
Yeah. I'm thinking the exact same thing. This is not from
the way
Lord.
God intended.
It's not from the Lord at all.
So this is post sin coming into the world.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like, if I don't want to go to hell as is.
Okay.
I would not enjoy that experience, and I'm not insinuating that I would. But I can tell you that if the threat were eternal frigid temperatures, it would be even more of a incentive for me to get my life together. This is awful. Anybody who enjoys this, I don't enjoy you. This is the best way I can say that.
It is. It's very cold, and we're having to deal with it.
Before I left the center today, Scotty looked at me. Scotty Hester.
Yeah.
I want to make this very clear because I want him to be shamed.
Oh, okay.
He looked at me and goes, "Man, this is baseball weather." And I looked at him and I said, "This is not baseball weather. This is not. The professional baseball is not playing right now. The fact that our high school baseball guys have to play baseball in this is ridiculous. It should not be happening." And I asked Scotty, I said, "Scotty, do you have a Facebook?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Well, I'm going to make you one. And I'm going to send myself a friend request. I'm going to accept it. And then I'm going to unfriend you." I'm going to go through that whole process just to make very clear that I want no connection with anybody who
So
enjoys
let me say this about Scotty. Number one, Scotty's knocking it out of the park. Number two, Scotty has enough mass and enough good clothing to enjoy this weather more than others. And third off, Scotty loves sports. And so his idea is it's sports weather, one way or the other. Now, he would like it to be football weather and football season, but we're not playing football right now. So, hey, he's ready for baseball.
I can think of one season that belongs right now, maybe two. Hockey could probably work now. Yeah. If you were going to make a Jamaican bobsled team, now would be a really great time to try to get a couple practices in. Outside of those two
Why
things.
did there have to be a Jamaican bobsled team?
Have you never seen Cool Runnings? Oh, my goodness.
Yes, I have.
The greatest bobsled team ever to live, led by John Candy himself.
But why can't you just have a bobsled team?
Because we want to be the best.
Oh.
Yeah. They were the most elite of the elite.
I got you.
Yeah.
Was. Right. I understand.
Probably still are. Just because they're not active doesn't mean they're not still the best.
Well, when you get to talking about baseball season stuff, so I've had to be a part of those seasons. I didn't understand that when I was a younger dad and stuff. Mm-hmm. I was a girl dad at first. We coached T-ball. T-ball started in April and, went to June or whatever. And then later, had a son, same thing, and playing Dixie, playing summer ball and that kind of stuff. And then was working at the center, and we hired Joe Campbell. And so Joe's son was a little older, Parker was a little older, and Joe helped out with the junior high baseball team. And I did not realize that junior high baseball started in January, and I was like, man, and they'd have like 10 games lined up, and 6 or 7 of them would get canceled.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time Joe Campbell told me, he was helping Brad Banks. And Brad's like, we're not adding any more games.
Yeah.
If they cancel, they cancel. And so they did all this practicing and stuff and only played a few games. because the weather is terrible
It's the
in
worst thing in the
Louisiana
world.
in January and February.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's absolutely terrible. And then when Cooper got older, I started to understand. And then his 8th grade season, I was actually the head coach of the baseball team for Mangum. And you talking about having to be versatile.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was basically, hey, we're going to play these games when we can.
Yeah.
And this is the way we're going to do it. And you just don't need to plan anything for the next few months. And we'll do the best we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And, hey, granted, I had a group of parents that were all on board with that. We had 14 kids, and their parents understood, and they were like it. But just because you had a game Monday at 6 o'clock, there was really no better chance of you playing it Monday at 6 than it was Tuesday at 4. I mean, it was – you had to be real versatile during this time. And – you also had to be versatile in your gear. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You had to have everything from playing in hoodies to playing sleeveless.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all of those kind of things, and it was difficult.
Yeah.
You know, and then in high school, you know, you practice a lot during this time, but you don't really get to play into what, mid-February or something like that, you know, or whatever, and you play all the way, you know, hopefully if you're a good team, to May. But junior high baseball was terrible because you only got the bad and none of the good. Yeah. So
That's
speaking
good.
of that, you're helping coach FCCS this
That's
year
correct.
in baseball.
Yes.
And y'all are officially, I know y'all been doing all this unofficial stuff, but you're officially in baseball season, right?
Yeah, I can't confirm or deny whether we've done anything before now. We have in no way violated any rules. I want to make that very clear. But yeah, it's go time. We should be rocking and rolling, but the weather is not cooperating. This is not weather where you can do what you need to do. It's just not. And
well, here's what I think about that. And we'll just say this on air, and then we can move forward or whatever. But you know, I work with you that's coaching FCCS, and Josh Ootman that's coaching Claiborne Christian now. Mm-hmm. And y'all have been practicing this week because this is the first official week, I think, that you can practice. Mm-hmm. And y'all have been practicing, and y'all have been griping about not getting to do what you should be able to do and about the weather and that kind of stuff. And at the same exact time, the kids at Mangum don't even know that you can practice baseball right now because their new head coach, Ridge Heisler, is in Cozumel on the beach right now while baseball season has already started. And so when I heard that,
it's a really good start to your career.
So when I heard that on Monday, because I was texting Ridge and he told me, you know, I was kind of wondering why everybody else is having baseball practice and we're not, you know. And so then he tells me why. And, of course, you know, he gives me an excuse about that he had the Crews playing for his anniversary, yada, 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 before he ever got the job. Yeah. Everybody's got excuses. I understand that. But I was thinking, man, this is a bad start to your coaching career. Like the same thing you thought. But now looking back.
Same thing I know.
Yeah, but looking back at it now, maybe he's the genius of the group because everybody else is frustrated right now and he's not frustrated. So that when he does come next week and decides to actually show up for his job or whatever, he's going to be refreshed, tan, ready to go, and not frustrated with this weather.
I could give you 15 reasons that's stupid, but I'm going to reserve myself to 2. The first is there's something about group suffering that brings the team into excellence.
I agree.
And the fact that they're out there in the cold doing it anyways is something that gels a group of people together. And so despite the difficulty of it all, there is something being built there. The second thing is when you have arms that haven't thrown in such a long time, and we have games at the end of January, we've got to start moving those arms. We got to, because if we throw somebody into a game, try to pitch some guys at the end of January that haven't thrown until the 15th of January, you're going to run into some problems in the long term, and you don't want to do that to the kids.
Well, not trying to bore
the teams.
Right.
You don't want to do that to the kids.
Not trying to bore everybody that doesn't care about baseball, but as a former pitcher yourself, as far as just the temperatures when you pitch. If you're in shape and your arm's good and everything's good, was it different for you if you were pitching and it was 45 degrees versus when it's 80 degrees?
Significant. Yeah.
Okay.
For me personally, and it's probably different person to person, I would say, but I could gain or lose 3 to 5 miles an hour, depending on
your
how
fastball?
on how my arm was feeling. And, you know, I threw somewhere between 85 and 88, and you know, a real cold day, I'm probably throwing 82, 85.
No matter how loose you are.
Yeah, it's and it may get better as the game goes on a little, but I'm not gonna hit 88, not on a frigid day. But the other thing is you can't, when your fingers are cold. There's not anything you can do about that when you're on the mound. You can keep them warm in the dugout. I say that I hit too. I wasn't a pitcher only, and so you know, a lot of times I was other things going on, but your hands get cold while you're pitching. They do. And your hands start to get numb. So you lose the feeling of the seams. And if you can't feel the seams, it's very hard to make them spin properly. And so your breaking pitches lose several inches of break as well. And so it's a pretty massive factor.
So you lose the velocity on the fastball and then lose some of your breaking ability on the changeups and on the off-swing
And
pitches.
control, because I don't have the feel of the seam. My hand is numb. You know, it's just different. It's like if you wouldn't want a surgeon working on you that has no feeling in his hands. That wouldn't be ideal. The same kind of thing. The release of a baseball has to be so precise to make a ball go where it's supposed to go. If you can't feel it, you don't know exactly when that's happening. You can get close, but muscle memory is kind of carrying you at that point.
Gotcha.
So.
Hey, last week we talked about New Year's resolutions. We talked about goals. We talked about some superstitions and stuff. I got a lot of feedback on a lot of that stuff. Did you?
Yeah, I got a lot of complaints again. You know, there were people, believe it or not, that did not like the fact that I said that Coke was for women. And I don't understand that. And you know, today I'm enjoying a Dr. Pepper, and a lot of people would make the assumption, incorrectly, of course, that is that not a Coca-Cola product?
Yeah, I thought it was a Coke product.
Yeah, and the answer is no. And here's how I know, because I made a few $100s off of their stock last year. It's actually partnered with Keurig, believe it or not. But I did a quick flip on a 2-day. They had a massive drop randomly at the end of, I guess around October-ish. They had a really big drop, and it seemed unusual to me. And so I read up on the news of it, and I realized it was a sell the news situation. So I just bought it, and I was like, this will come back to normal in a couple of days, and it did. So I just bought it and sold it. And so, but it is actually its own thing, which is why it's probably good, because it's not made by Coke. Coke would probably find a way to ruin it. And so, you know, good for them. But no, we had a lot of great feedback on the goals. A lot of great feedback on the goals, and man, I'm excited to see people setting goals and having expectations for themselves, because if you don't expect anything yourself, you're probably not, you'll meet whatever expectation you have usually. There's a line from the movie Dodgeball that I always thought was funny. When the lawyer comes in, she's talking to the main character. He's like, you know, I find if you have a goal, you might not reach it. But if you never have a goal, you're never disappointed. And which was, you know, she was asking because of his total lack of seeming determination or having accomplished anything with his life. And
he had it all worked out.
And in his mind, it's like, well, at least I'm not disappointed, you know. And but that's what a lot of people struggle with, that the fear of not reaching a goal keeps them from setting a goal. And since they don't set a goal, they don't strive toward anything. And since they're not striving towards anything, nothing's actually getting any better. And so I'm excited to see a lot of people setting goals.
I agree. I think every individual session that I've done so far this week, and maybe even dating back to some of last week, had to do with them wanting to talk about their goals.
Yeah.
And I know this is kind of the time of the year for that, but at the same time, this is way more than ever. And these are people that's never set goals before,
I agree.
And so I had, one come in, And, man, he's got all the goals and everything and how we're going to get there and stuff. And then I got another guy that just come in with 5 things, and we had to develop it. We had to, say, okay, well, these are more like dreams because they don't have any basis to them. Let's develop them out, And so we did. And so, man, I've really got to work with a lot of people. And then I've had other people just send me their goals, because they know I'll check with them, I had a guy, a good friend of mine and Miss Becky's, came to the house sometime last week. Yeah, it was like last Thursday or Friday, I think it was, and let us know that Monday he was going to start some kind of diet regimen, some kind of program. And but he didn't know at the time what he was going to do. He was just asking us questions. And so we gave him a lot of really good advice. And then over the weekend, I gave him some advice, and some different things, and kind of try to steer him the right direction. So on Monday afternoon, I texted him and asked him how it went, and he told me that he had the best of intentions, but he didn't get it done,
Sure.
And then so I said, okay. And so I gave him some more good advice, and even got Cooper to bring a couple things to his house and drop it off at his house that I thought would make things a lot easier,
Yeah.
And then so Tuesday, I asked him. I said, "Hey, how'd it go?" And he says, "Well, it was better than Monday." So well, that's good because Monday you didn't do it, And then I asked him Wednesday, "Hey, how'd it go?" And he goes, "Well, this week is going to just kind of be a work in progress, So he's thinking and he's trying. We would call that in the addiction world, he's in the contemplation stage.
Yeah.
Right. I would actually call it pre-contemplation. But anyhow, he's in the contemplation stage. But, I think he's realized pretty quick that either he shouldn't have said nothing to me or he should have said something to me.
Accountability is real. Yeah.
Because I'm that guy that already has the text ready to go for this afternoon and ready to go check up on him, because number one, it's his desire. I didn't tell him he needed to do this.
Yeah.
God had already put this on the inside of him. I'm not trying to get him to conform to what I think he should be or anything like that. I'm just trying to help him as a friend.
Yeah, you're trying to hold him to the standard he was setting for himself.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
And
that's fair
for
play.
me, it's easier for me to do that. So anyhow, and he's the one that brought it up at my house, and not only with me, but with Miss Becky too. And so anyhow, I love it, man, when people tell me about their goals and what they got going on and stuff. Last week, I made a comment that I said, there's certain people in my life that I would send my goals to, and I think I even called out who they are, and I said, but I said with Miss Becky,
I know where this is going.
Well, and so anyhow, she actually, before she ever listened to Jesus Cartel this week, because she was a couple days later listening to it this week, she actually texted me and said, hey, you hadn't sent me your goals yet. And I hadn't mentioned them. She just has known that I've done that over the last few years, and I didn't reply. And then she listened to Jesus Cartel, and she was laughing with me about it. She said I like to read them just because you like to send them. But she reiterated the fact that I don't think you need to change in any way.
Yeah.
Now, does she really believe that? I think she does. And I think it's okay that I have a wife that feels that way. I don't think I have to have a wife that feels that way, but I think it's okay that I do. What I don't want is everybody around me to feel that way.
Yeah.
Because that's not the way I feel.
Yeah.
I taught job readiness class this week, and I told them, look, the perfect place to be in is I am perfectly cool with where I'm at. I'm just not cool with staying where I'm at.
That's good.
And so we don't need to be so messed up in our mind to where even when things are good, we think they're not good because nothing's ever good enough. Never want to be there. But we also don't want to be complacent thinking that we're perfect in every way and that we don't have any room for improvement,
Sure.
And so we want to be comfortable in our own skin, comfortable where we are, but not cool with staying at that exact spot.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And, I'm kind of the opposite of Miss Becky in that sense, which, And this thing, people consider themselves either similar or opposite to a person, and that's really not true. Everything's categorical. You know, there are some things that Miss Becky and I are complete opposites, but we've also got some very strong similarities in some other areas. But in that sense, we're the opposite in that, like, she thinks that you're great the way you are, and she means it. And I think that you're not, and I mean it. And it's not, we're just wired different in that until something has achieved perfection, I can't stop messing with it. I just can't. Well, I also am keenly aware that that's an ever elusive target, you know, but it doesn't stop me from trying to tinker with it until I figure it out. I don't think that you're a bad guy in any sense, but do I think that you've nailed any aspect of your life? No, I don't think you've nailed a single one, and you're really good at a lot of stuff, and I still don't think you've nailed it. And so I just want to take a little miniature screwdriver and just tweak it.
Right.
Let's see what happens if we tighten this up a little bit, or let's back off this a hair, and see what happens. Like, let's keep refining, and that's the way that I'm wired, and you have to have both.
And you need all those aspects.
That's right.
In your life.
That's right.
And you can't do all of that for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and I think our topic later on is going to kind of get into that a little bit, and we
Sure.
can get in that later. But you need all kind of different relationships in your life that all have their purpose and all have those kind of things. Because if you could do all of that for yourself at all times, you know, it may be different, but God made us relational, and He made us that way so that we can do that. But, you know, I think we did a topic one time about, you know, the bad of, you know, surrounding yourself with yes men all the time.
Yes.
You know, man, that is a difficult place to be. Now, you also don't want to be in a place to where you're having to fight everybody around you all the time either, you know. And so you need to be able to have that balance there. I saw a thing one time, Joe Campbell sent it to me, and it said the 5 or 6 different types of friends that you need to have, and it was like a video or something, and then it said, and if you can find a friend that's several of those, that's a good thing too. And so when he sent it to me, I was like, okay, I'm that kind of friend, I'm that kind of friend, I'm that kind of friend. And there was one of them, maybe not, but the rest of them, hey, I was that kind of friend. And so, you know, if you can find those people in your life, maybe you don't have to have that many, if several of them have those several qualities, I guess. But I love being that kind of friend. I love being that person that we can visit on any topic and talk about anything, and we can try to make anything better. But then at the same time, we're not going to act like we're terrible at everything, and we're not going to act like we're perfect at anything. You know, I mean, we're constantly evolving and getting better.
Yeah.
And instead, do you have something to say on that?
I was just going to say that, you know, understanding what your strengths are in those areas is a really big deal too. Like knowing what kind of friend you are when it comes to those relationships is a big deal. And also really knowing your circle. Not generally, but really knowing them, because there's certain people you call for certain things. There just are. If you need encouragement, you'd probably be much more likely to reach out to your wife than you would be to reach out to me. Right. It's not that I'm never encouraging, but she's much better at it than I am. It's just reality. And, you know, if you had some really horrible news and you just needed somebody to be really empathetic with you in that moment, I'm probably not going to feel the first call. You'll tell me, but you'll tell me later when you've gotten beyond where that's really what you need,
that, right.
You know, and I'm okay with that, because I know, like, hey, look, it's not that I don't care. It's just that's not what I'm best at, and I'll sit in the room with you, brother, if that's what you need me to do. But if you're looking for somebody to be able to emotionally connect in that moment, I'm just probably not your guy. I'd love to be, I'm just not, and I don't do flattery at all. So if you ever need flattery, I'm out. Like, I won't get that call now or later, and people know that. And I say that all the time, anytime, and it happens a lot of times, because it happened just the other day. I was giving a guy a compliment, and he just said, as most people do in this situation, hey, I really appreciate you saying that. And I just wanted to make sure he knew. It's like, I meant it. I will not flatter you. I don't believe in it. I think it will hurt you if I try to flatter you. And so it's like, sometimes you got some friends that just kind of like puff you up and make you feel like you're better than you are. Like, and that's a cool trait that I got old buddy of mine named Stephen Gandy, and it was a gift of his. When you were around Stephen Gandy, you felt a foot taller, you felt cooler, you felt richer, you felt whatever you wanted to feel. He made you feel more of that. And it was all flattery. It was all smoke and mirrors, but it was a gift he had, and you just felt better being around him. I can't do that. That's not a thing for me, because I start to get in a moral dilemma with myself.
Well, I had a lady one time tell me that I had the gift of encouragement, and I had to think about that for a minute, and because I'm the same way, as far as I don't want to ever say anything just to be saying something, And so I went later and talked to her about that, and I said, hey, I've been thinking about this, and I'm not saying you're wrong. We need to talk about this for a minute. And she goes, I said, if you're going to tell me another sentence or two, what would you say? And she said, you have a way of making people feel good in the areas that they should feel good in without telling them something that isn't true. And I said, well, fair enough. I'm good with that. Hey, if I can encourage you in the most truthful manner in the world, hey, I'm good with that. But what I don't want to do is tell you how good you are at something that you're not.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I see a lot of people do that. And then when they tell me something, then it holds no weight whatsoever because I know they were lying when they told it to this one.
Yeah.
I
also have a gift. It's just not that one. Yeah, I have the gift of I'm willing to hit my friends. Here's what I mean by that, because it sounds really negative. You've got enough understanding of this topic that might not have sounded weird to you, but I know to some people it probably sounded weird. Here's what I mean. There was a time when I was in college, I had a friend of mine who'd gotten very intoxicated, and a very close friend of mine, gotten very intoxicated and was trying to drive home. And he wasn't driving yet. He was trying to get to his truck, and everybody's trying to stop him. It's one of these situations where you know that this is a very bad idea. And I grabbed him. I'm not going to tell you his name. I grabbed him and said, hey, look, brother, so I'm going to tell you this one time real clearly. You're not going to get in this truck. And if I got to whoop you to keep you from getting in this truck, that's just what has to happen here. And it's like, last warning, don't make another move for the truck. I'm up. Bang. Drop my friend. Why? Save his life. Save his life. That's hard to do for a lot of people. It's hard to do. It was what was necessary at the time, So it's kind of the opposite end of encouragement. But like you said, you got to have all of them.
Hey, look, guy, just the other day, 2 days ago, I was giving him a hug and said, man, I want to hug you and punch you in the face at the same time. And he goes, I need both. And I said, yeah, I want to hug you for who you are, and I want to punch you for what you've done.
Yeah.
And he goes, and I need both.
That's good.
He didn't just say I deserve both.
Sure.
He said I need both.
That's right.
And
that's a mature place to be.
And he's right.
I'm happy for that.
That's right. He's right. Hey, at this time, I would like to thank our newest, very large sponsor, and that is Robert Wallace and Wallace Service Center. We appreciate Mr. Robert Wallace and Wallace Service Center for all they do to help out, not Jesus Cartel, but to help out so many other projects, and we really appreciate them.
Yeah, thank you again. Yeah,
Amen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because I'm going to be honest, we kind of just fast-tracked into the topic of the day a little bit by accident.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about the Get to Know You segment question because it's very good. Sure. And you already know what it is.
Yeah, but I was trying to remember what it was. That's why I started. The wheels started spinning.
Clay's actually the one who came up with the Get to Know You segment question based on a conversation I think that you had
at the Women's Center.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And so the question is, where do we stand on great value products versus name brand products? A debate as old as time.
Yeah.
A debate as old as time. And, man, I've got some really, really clear thoughts on the matter. Where are you? Is it clear? Is it clear as day to you? Or is
well, I was just thinking that when I grew up, I have to give the older perspective. It was price saver. Mm-hmm. Then it was always save, and then it was great value.
Yeah.
So it's always been different. And so, but no, I am cool with saving money where we need to save money. Mm-hmm. But I think that there are a section of products that we should not sacrifice on. Mm-hmm. So if we can save some money, I'm good with it, but there's certain things that there is no compromise. So that's where I'm at.
How do you determine the difference between those two things for somebody? I mean, I think
basically the cost and effect. Basically how much I save versus what I get out of it. Mm-hmm. If I drank Dr. Pepper, I would drink Dr. Pepper, not Mr. Pip. Now.
Whoa!
A lot of people say.
Hold on, dude. I would have been fine if you said Dr. Pepper, Dr. Thunder.
Dr. Thunder, there it is.
Mr. Pibb is not an off-brand, okay? That is a high-quality beverage.
Is Mr. Pibb, is that the same as root beer?
Mr. Pibb is Pepsi's version of Dr. Pepper.
I've never drank it before. All right.
They had it at the Pizza Hut.
I thought they had a root beer there. They probably did. But anyhow, with that being said, Dr. Pepper versus Dr. Thunder. I stand corrected. Hey, I'm a man. I can understand. I've never drank any of them, but I can understand where I messed up.
I do think it's cool that all people who make that particular flavor have PhDs. Like, Mr. Thunder could have also put out
So anyhow, there would be enough of a difference there that I would go with the Dr. Pepper versus the Dr. Thunder, right? But then there's other things, like when I buy rice, I don't know the difference. If I buy Brookshire's rice or Great Value rice or Mahatma's rice, to me it's more about how you cook the rice. And making sure that you boil the water first instead of trying to do it together. To me, that's what makes rice a lot different. So I'm a guy that, Charmin Ultra Salt, that's where I'm at, and Blue Plate Mayonnaise, that's where I'm at. So those two things right there, we are not going with any off-brand whatsoever. Just because you roll your eyes doesn't mean it's not true.
I'm not rolling my eyes. I'm making sure that I'm making eye contact with all of our viewers just so they can see my disapproval.
Angel Soft is not Great Value. Angel Soft's a good brand too. It's just not the brand that I prefer. You're talking about Great Value.
The Great Value is.
Are you telling me you use Great Value toilet tissue?
Absolutely.
Ain't no way.
Absolutely, man.
Like Fresh Start toilet tissue or Great Value toilet tissue?
Great Value is different. Fresh Start toilet tissue is another animal.
It's a little difficult.
Yeah. I'm not going to say what I was about to say. I was about to say something. Yeah. Stop, Andrew. So here's what it comes down to me. When it comes to Great Value versus a name brand product, the question for me is, are you paying for the name? Are you paying for the name and that's it?
Right.
And if you got to ask the question, then you're probably paying for the name. If you legitimately have used both products and are like, I can't distinguish the difference between the two, then it always makes more sense to go with the one that saves you money. When you're not paying for the name, it's usually a matter of duration. Occasionally it's a matter of short-term quality, but it's normally a matter of duration. For instance, you buy a name brand jacket or you buy a Temu jacket, one of them will probably last you a really long time because of the quality of materials, the way that it's made, probably be very hard to tear up. Your Temu jacket, probably going to come apart a lot sooner. Couple of washes, you see some threads start to pull. Like there's a different thing there. So when it comes to products that I need something to have some serious duration, I will spend extra money to purchase a product that I believe will endure, right? If duration is not an issue, then I'm much more likely to buy a Great Value product unless there's an excellence of performance I need in the short term, right? And here's what I mean by that. Let's say I got wood floors at my house, right? And there's some people coming over for a business meeting. And we need to, we don't normally do anything crazy with our floors. We just kind of run a quick mop over them. Don't do anything. We don't try to make them sparkle. But this is a big deal. We got some people coming over. This deal could mean a lot to us. And I go to the store. I'm only going to do this one time. When I got great value wood cleaning products, or I got a name brand that I recognize because I don't even use these products, but when I go there, I see a name that I know. It's like, okay, I'm going to go with the more expensive product there. Why? Because I need a short-term, high-quality performance in that matter, and I'm going to go with a name I can recognize in that. It'd be no different than if I was going to call on somebody to help me with something that I needed to be extremely effective in the short term. I'm going to call on a name I know. Yeah. I'm not going to reach out to somebody for the very first time when I'm under crunch time and see how they do. I'm going to call on somebody who has a history of dependability, proven dependability. And so that's kind of where it lies for me. I would say that in life, the majority of the products that we have are great value products. But the stuff that matters long term, stuff that I really need to trust to function and operate, you recognize the names on it.
Yeah, so let's get down to the nitty gritty, because I'm not into names, I'm into quality, right? Okay. And like I said, I'm a guy that wants to get the best value for my money at everything that I do.
Sure.
It doesn't matter whether it's a car, clothes, food. I want to get the best value for my money. I'm okay with paying a certain, ever how much money if I can get the best value. Okay, so I'm not trying to be the cheapest. I'm not trying to buy the name brand.
Yeah, you want the deal.
I want the deal. I want the best, best bang for the buck, right? So if Blue Plate mayonnaise was $3.99 and the same jar of great value Walmart brand mayonnaise was $3.29, which one do you buy? In mayonnaise.
I'm going great value, brother.
Okay.
I'm going great value.
Bounty paper towels are $3.99 and regular paper towels are $3.29. Which one would you buy?
We don't use paper towels because they're inefficient.
Rags?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We have but that's the reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That goes to your point.
That what we have learned over the years is if we have paper towels available, we'll use them like we're the wealthiest people God ever made. We'll have one small spill, and we'll use 15 paper towels to clean it. And it's just like, that was just an inefficient. So we got a bunch of shop towels that we keep clean and we use to clean up spills like that. And we got wet wipes galore because we have kids. So if there's ever like a mess that needs that kind of attention, we use wet wipes to clean it. But it's the same.
Hey, it's the same principle.
Yeah.
Hey, I understand. If you're getting a roll of cookie dough, are you going to get Nestle's at $4? Are you going to get great value at $3.19?
I'm going to get great value at $3.19. Now, all of the ones that you have cited that I chose great value are food products, right? And so with food, it's all about taste. Yeah. And so there are particular products within food that are different. Now, you start talking about cuts of meat, types of steak. Now I'm going to lean more towards the more expensive side of things because I can tell, for myself, I can tell a legitimate difference between the two. I'd rather get food from a friend who raises the animals himself. Half my freezer's full of locally raised animals.
Which you spent more money on.
Significantly more money on. And it's different, but I believe in the quality and the taste is significantly different.
So because those things mean more to you,
that's right.
Because you're more of a protein, regular main dish guy, then you'll put more money into those things.
Yeah.
Whereas some people will buy the cheaper cuts of meat and just do more to them. And you want to be able to buy the higher cuts of meat and do less to them.
I will spend more. This is a really good way for me to boil this down. If I can't pronounce the ingredients on the back of it, on either, I'm going to get the cheaper one. But I will pay more money for a more pure product.
I got you.
Yeah. If Blue Plate mayonnaise had 5 ingredients versus Great Value mayonnaise having 17, I'd pay the extra money for the Blue Plate.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So to me, it's about knowing what I'm taking in. And so if I'm going to spend money on it, it needs to have a long-term benefit that I can really feel, and it's going to benefit my children. I try to keep things like, we spend a lot of money on sugar. We don't buy regular sugar at our house. We buy more expensive natural sugar. Because if we're going to use it and my kids are going to take it in, I want to try to control those things as best I can to where it's going to set them up to win, not lose.
Gotcha.
And
everybody's different. Like in our house, there is no sugar.
Sure.
You know, we don't even buy it.
Y'all got bottles and bottles
different.
of cinnamon, though, isn't it?
Yeah, because we don't remember we have it. Yep.
I never did get that cinnamon for our listeners.
But we did look, and we did have several bottles of cinnamon.
Yeah, several bottles they don't share.
So look. My stance on it is we want to get the best bang for the buck, whatever that is. And Andrew wants to get the purest thing that he can get.
Yeah, so. And when it comes to other people, I think it also boils down to just having a respect for people, because what's important to Clay is not important to me. Mayonnaise and toilet paper are not something that's super significant to me, but I can respect it.
And those are the first two things that come to my mind.
Sure, but I can respect that that's something that matters to you,
right.
you know. And so there's a balance there as well. It's just, you know, respecting what other people believe is important. There's obviously lines that can be crossed, but and those have to be handled a little more particularly. But for the most part, man, if you'll just really want the best for other people, you can usually deal with a lot more.
Well, one of the ladies that asked me this originally asked me this in a premarital counseling session, you know, because the guy that she's marrying is used to just going and buying things on his own, and he goes with what he knows is good, and he knows this brand is good, so that's what he buys. And she's a little more thrifty when she goes shopping, because her mindset is to buy it for both of them, not just to buy it for, you know, himself. And so she gets some brands sometimes that he's not sold on, you know, because when you're trying to do that, you do get some bad grabs, you know, and then you kind of figure out what's good and what's not and those kind of things. And so this is an area that they needed to talk about, and we need to have some counsel on before they got married.
Sure.
You know, and so we did, and you know, come to some agreements there. So when I offered them to tell me what would you like to talk about as far as getting to know you segment question, here she is, great value versus regular brand. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. So talking about healthy relationships, let's just kind of dive back into it.
So that is the topic of the day.
Yeah, that's the topic of the day. If you were just going to, if I was just going to sit at the table and say, hey, man, tell me about healthy relationships, where does your mind start?
Yeah, so my mind starts that is a very important thing to have in your life. All right, so we're made relationally, and we're made to have relationships with people. But I think that so many times people understand that, and because they know we're supposed to have relationships, they're too prone to have unhealthy relationships for the sense of having relationships.
Yeah.
So the first thing that comes to my mind when we say, you know, tell me about healthy relationships, man, it's important, very important to have relationships that are healthy. I'm not saying that there's no place for other relationships that haven't made it to that point yet.
Sure.
But that should be the goal of all relationships, is for them to come to a healthy place. You know, you spoke a week or two ago about how me and you had a friendship, but that it was a little one-sided for a little while. And then as it was able to be reciprocated better, then it become stronger, right? Yeah. And so it was always a good friendship, but it become a really healthy relationship once it was able to, you know, be both sides a little bit more.
Sure.
Okay, so I can respect that, and I agree with that. It didn't mean it was bad before, but the goal was for it to become healthy on both sides. So that should always be our goal, is that our relationships may not always start out great, but the goal is for them to be healthy relationships. And once you realize, and we talked about this in job readiness this week, and we talked about it, me and you've talked about this on Jesus Cartel some too, that at some point when you realize that they're just not going to be healthy relationships, you got to cut them out.
That's right.
You know, and so it doesn't have to start out the best relationship in the world, but it needs to be trending in that direction. And then at some point, if you realize it's not going to be healthy or it's not going to be beneficial for you, then you got to cut it out. There's a guy who lives in East Archibald that him and our relationship couldn't have started any more turbulent than it did. We were in a situation that I was on one side, he was on another side. The other people involved had real strong opinions, so we almost had to have strong opinions, and it was about control and who was going to do this and that kind of stuff. And mine and his relationship started really difficult because of this situation. And it wasn't a friendship, it wasn't a relationship, it was just an acquaintance, and it didn't start off good at all.
Yeah.
And I didn't handle it correctly, and he might not handle it correctly, and it's just the way it was. But over time, God kept putting us back together. And the more we were back together, the more common ground we found, and the more cool things we found. And now, we're friends today, and we make a joke because it's the friendship that shouldn't have never happened.
Yeah.
And we're not best friends or anything, but we have a really good, healthy relationship where, I could call on him and he could call on me, and we have a lot of mutual ground. But it started way over here, and if it would have stayed that way, we wouldn't have had a relationship.
Yeah.
But evidently God wanted us to be together, and we kept, doing. And so that's the first thing that comes to my mind, is that don't let yourself to succumb to difficult, negative relationships just for the sense of having relationships.
Yeah.
Need to know that having healthy relationships that are both sided or reciprocated is the goal.
Sure.
So that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
And you have to learn to bend a little bit. That doesn't mean compromise. There's a big difference in compromise and bending. And so the reason I say that is because two people that are very, very similar are much more likely to clash the first time they meet than get along. Let's say you got two guys that are used to just stepping up and leading the conversation anytime there's a roundtable discussion, because we all know people like that. Like if there's a conversation being had, this guy's going to kind of be at the forefront of it, and everybody would get to share, but he's going to kind of lead you through it. Well, you put two guys at that table that do that, and now there's a power vacuum happening. They don't mean for it to, but it does. Those guys are much more likely to dislike each other the first time that they meet, because the other one seemed like they were trying to put themselves in the middle of at the forefront of everything, not realizing that that's something they do naturally. And so the other guy's probably thinking the exact same thing about them. And so now you got two guys that don't like each other. And, we see that a lot in high school sports. I know that when I was in school, I was a shortstop at, one of the most prominent schools in the state, especially in our area. I hated every shortstop on every other team within a 50-mile radius. But we were all the same person.
Yeah.
We were all the same person. Why didn't I like them? Because they were me, because they acted like I acted. And by God, I couldn't stand people like that. but it's so silly, but it's just we were so similar that it caused problems. Now, we all get to college, and we're all best friends because the context of the situation changed. And so we weren't jockeying for the same things. Now we're working in unison to accomplish a similar goal, and we realize, hey, this guy's awesome. I really enjoy being around him. But it was because we bent a little bit. I didn't compromise what I believed was good, true, or right, but I was like, hey, look, let me take a step back and give the guy a shot. Let him give him an honest shake. And you'd be surprised at how much that changes things. And also understanding this, because you talked about cutting people out, cutting people off. We talked about that a little bit in Job Readiness this morning. I want to make a very important distinction. There's a difference in an unhealthy relationship and a relationship where you're not getting what you wanted. Those are not the same thing.
That's right.
And a lot of times people will cut off relationships because they're not getting what they want, or feel like they've been wronged. In a situation where you really weren't wronged, you just didn't like what happened. And so you're like, well, that's unhealthy, and you cut it off. That's not an unhealthy relationship, that maybe somebody challenged you on something or didn't cave into your demands. that actually might be the healthiest relationship you have.
Right.
And so don't cut somebody off just because they didn't behave the way you wanted them to behave. That's controlling, that's manipulation, that's a lot of really bad things, but it's not unhealthy. An unhealthy relationship is a totally different thing. And there's lots of ways to quantify what an unhealthy relationship is. If I tried to, we'd have to do a whole episode just to
what it looks
say
like.
all the ways.
I think a lot of people understand what that looks like,
Sure.
To where one person is controlling and you don't really have any say in the matter, or it could be that you're pouring into somebody. This is kind of the way we're going with it this week. You're pouring into somebody and they're not even trying for themselves, and different things like that. So there's a lot of ways.
And
relationships become
enabling is another. That's probably the big.
That's
three.
Another one.
I would say that those three are probably the big three.
Yeah.
Where you're either have no power, have too much power, or it's just wholly unproductive.
Right. Yeah, and so you see all those things, and yeah, that will probably be the three categories. If we broke it down of unhealthy relationships, and I think most of us have been involved in probably all three of those to some degree.
Yeah.
To some degree, and so you had to. So, I'm not saying that just because those relationships are unhealthy, that they can't become healthy relationships. They can. but they take a lot of work on both sides. So like you said, some give and some bend. I'm not saying the compromise, but the give and the bend and the willingness to do that. And so my initial thought, like I said, is that we need healthy relationships, and we need to, our relationships that aren't necessarily healthy yet need to be trending in that direction, or that needs to be the plan. Go ahead.
Before you keep going, I want to say something just so our viewers can follow this. The difference between bend and compromise. There's no such thing as bend when it comes to morality.
That's right.
There's only compromise when it comes to morality. You can't bend your morals. Compromise has to do with preference, right? You don't bend your preference. You compromise. I'm sorry. You can. I said it backwards.
That's right.
Bend comes to preference. You can bend your preferences. You aren't compromising preferences. You're bending your preferences. And so, understand the difference between those two things. If you are altering your morality, that's a compromise. If you're altering your preference, that's a bend.
So if I come to your house and you make me a hamburger, and I agree to eat a hamburger, and you made me one, and I look and you're putting Ken's mayonnaise on my hamburger, then I am going to eat the hamburger, and you will never know any difference.
Yeah.
And I bent my preference because I would prefer that if you had blue plate on it.
Yeah.
But if I come to your house to eat a hamburger and you give me a beer to drink, then I'm not going to drink the beer just because you gave it to me.
Yeah.
That would be compromising
That's right.
what I do. And so that's a good example of the bend versus compromise, right? And and I'm glad you clarified that and brought that back up, because man, we hear that all the time, that, well, in order to minister to somebody, I got to meet them where they are. I understand what you're trying to say, but I also understand that a lot of people have relapsed and messed up for the sake of ministering to somebody.
Jesus was around sinners, but never in their sin.
Right.
He hung out with prostitutes, not at a brothel. He hung out with drunkards, not at a bar. Yeah, it was a wholly different thing. He met them where they were positionally in life, but not inside their sin ever.
Yeah. So and so, like I said, that was the first thing I thought of when I think of healthy relationships. Here's the next side. All right, so where this topic come from, if you don't remember, a couple months ago, we read an article on things that we'd like to teach our sons or our children, and we're down the list, number 5 or 6 or wherever we're at, but number seven, and it's teach them the importance of healthy relationships. So I just do want to give this example. So this is something that happened in my life with my family, and just want to give this real life example. So and Andrew knows the story, but a few years ago, my son, was I don't know how old he was, 13, 14 years old, ever how old he was. Didn't have Snapchat, didn't have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, none of those kind of things. Had no social media whatsoever. But he did have an app called Bleacher Report. And Bleacher Report at the time just gave us all the up-to-date sports information that was going on. You picked your teams, and then it would send you that information. And if you put notifications, it would just send it to you, so, whatever's happening. So if your deal was the New Orleans Saints, every time the New Orleans Saints had something, it would be delivered to your phone. So at some point, and maybe he was 14, 15 years old, but at some point we let him have Bleacher Report because it was basically the same as ESPN, right? And so after a while, so not only did he read it, but he made a sign-in, made a password, and did that because then you could reply. So if somebody was talking about something, you could make a comment. So I'd had it all these years, never signed in, just looked at it because I wouldn't comment. But he would comment, man, Juan Soto had a great game last night, whatever it was. And so anyhow, but in that app, I didn't realize it, was some places like chat groups. And so there would be a chat group called the Chris Sale Fan Club.
Yep.
Or whatever. And so people that like Chris Sale, which happened to be his favorite pitcher at the time, Boston Red Sox, then they would go to this little group and they would talk about all kind of stuff, but their unique bond was Chris Sale.
Yeah.
Right? And so they wouldn't talk trash about Chris Sale. They'd talk good stuff about him, but they'd talk about all kinds of stuff. And so he got to where he would chat with these people in that group. So we found out about it and we read it, and it was nothing bad whatsoever. But it really bothered me.
Yeah.
Because I'm reading it and this guy's like, "Hey, did your dad preach this morning?"
Yeah.
And Cooper's like, "No, not today. But he preaches next Sunday or whatever." Yeah. And man, it just really got off on me because he doesn't know these people. He don't know who they are. He doesn't know where they're from. He just knows what they say in this little chat group or whatever on this app. And, first thing that comes to everybody's mind when I tell the story is, he could get taken or something. That wasn't my mind wasn't there. My mind wasn't that this could be somebody presenting themselves as something they're not and they could come take my son. That part didn't cross my mind. What crossed my mind is, these relationships cannot be healthy. Why can't they be healthy? Because there's no accountability.
Yeah, that's right.
See, that day that I found out about it, we cut off that app. Yeah. We took his phone. He's never had it again. He's never been back on that group chat again. None of those people ever come to Winsboro, Louisiana to check on him, to see how he was doing or anything. Because why? Because they didn't know him. They didn't know him. They didn't have a relationship. There was no accountability. You can't have a relationship without having accountability.
That's right.
If I can say whatever the heck I want to say to you and there's no repercussions and there's no accountability there, that is not a healthy relationship. That's not a cool relationship at all. And so that's where we find a lot of people in to where they have these relationships that aren't even real. I'm not talking about internet stuff. I'm just talking about relationships to where they really don't have a back and forth. They don't have accountability. They don't have those things. If I say something to you today, good, bad, or ugly, hey, I got to look at you again tomorrow.
That's right.
I mean, we got to be back together because we have this relationship. And so there's things that, may come to my mind to say to my wife or to my kids or to my coworkers or to my friends or whatever. But look, I think about them way a lot before they come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Why? Because I got to be around these people all the time. And I want to, and I value healthy relationships.
That's right.
So where there is no accountability, this is where I want to get to on this, where there is no accountability, it cannot be healthy.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm gonna be honest with you. I felt like that was a complete thought.
Yeah.
I don't want to try to add anything to that.
We just want to make sure that people understand if you're in a relationship and you're not able to hold that person accountable, or you don't have any of the power in the relationship or anything going, that is an unhealthy relationship.
Yeah.
On the other side, if you're in a relationship with somebody and you can say what you want to say and do what you want to do, and there's no accountability, no nothing, that's unhealthy on your side too.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're trying to control the accountability also.
Right.
Like that's a big thing. So like you say you're talking sideways to your wife.
Right.
And then you threaten the kids not to repeat it. Like
Yeah.
problem. Problem.
Yeah, that's difficult.
And it's yeah, for sure. And so when we were talking earlier, when the episode kind of started, we were talking about one of the differences that Miss Becky and I have on how she's very encouraging and how I'm always trying to tinker with things. There was a thought I wanted to make, but I didn't want to continue to pile that direction without going further into the topic for the week. And I was to say it's so important for me, being somebody who is ever chasing the illusion of perfection, knowing when to tighten and loosen those screws. Because I do want to continue to help refine you. Mm-hmm. I want to be a part of the process of your refining. Very bad, right? All the people I care about, I want to be a part of that process. But there's a time to tinker with, and there's a time to leave it alone. Yeah. And when you're discouraged, it's never the time for me to start messing with stuff. And I see too many times people like me that have that mindset and mentality, who don't know when to back off for a second and let somebody take a breath and land before you start jacking with them again. Yep. It's when you're trying to grow, you're going to experience failure. It's just reality of life. Mm-hmm. When you're trying to grow, anytime you're trying to, you're going to fall sometimes. You're going to come up short, and these things are going to happen. It's not immediately time to start prodding them to do something else. You need to let them take a breath and land first. You can't force things to happen just over and over and over again. You'll really strain the relationship majorly if every time somebody stumbles, you're like, well, hey, just do this. And it's like that's not what they need. They need to be able to breathe for a second. You don't even have to say anything, by the way. They don't even necessarily need your advice or encouragement. They just need you to leave them alone for just a second. Yep. It's not that long. Like in our mind, it's like, well, if I don't say it now, I'll never. This is not true. Just let them breathe. Let them breathe. That was one of the things I really struggled with early on, was because I wanted to help people so bad. I want to help them now, and I didn't know how to let people have space.
You know, a comment I got on that. You were actually there. We were in Malawi. But I don't think it was a long way. I think it was the conference that Samson put on. Yep. But was that the long way?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. And so we were there, and Matt Clark was preaching, and preached a message I've heard him preach, a lot of times. And I think you were holding a little baby in Malawi, and we were in the back. And all of a sudden he said, it's not your job to fix them. It's your job to lead them to Christ.
That's right.
And lead them to Christ, and lead them to Christ, and let Him do the work. And I think so many times in life, we try to fix them, and we try to do this, and if you just do it my way, then you would have this success. And if they wanted to do it your way all the time, they would do it all your way all the time. And so sometimes it's, like I said with the guy that I made a joke about texting him again today. I really thought about taking today off and not texting him, because I've texted him 3 days in a row, and evidently he's not, putting forth the effort right now, Yeah. So I probably do need to back off a day or so. But at the same time, I think sometimes we try so hard to make them to drink when we realize that all we're supposed to do is lead them to the water, And so many times I think that we do that. Now, you got some people that just think, man, if you would just see it my way on everything, you'd be great. And those kind of people, man, people get away from those people pretty quick. Yeah. Especially when they're dealing with some stuff, because they think they can fix everything, and I understand. But a lot of times you got to back off a little bit, give them a little time. Like you said, let them land a little bit,
That's right.
Nothing wrong with being there, available for them, but not giving them anything until they ask for it again.
That's right.
You know, sometimes they need to know that we care. They need to know that we're there. But at the same time, we don't need to be just offering, because that's when you either, you know, you're smothering them too much, or you're enabling them not to do anything. You know, so they do need to be able to make their mind up. So
That's good.
yeah, that was good stuff.
I want to tell our viewers real quick that the conference that he's referencing in the Long Way is also the conference where Clay beat the living tar out of me
Okay.
in front of a crowd of cheering Africans. When he was doing his illustration of the skirt, I still had long hair at the time, and so he calls me to the front to be Jesus in this illustration. And when he grabbed me by the hair, the people started cheering, and then he smacks me, and they started cheering even louder. And I guess just the adrenaline of the moment, Clay for like the next 3 minutes just whooped the mess out of me.
Did you know that Jesus did? I mean, that the Pharisees did a elbow drop off of the top rope onto Jesus.
That was the
That day
wildest
they
thing.
did.
Yeah, I got the mess beat out of me in front of a bunch of African pastors, and they just cheered. And
No, it was so funny because leading up to the trip, Andrew really seriously wanted to know whether he needed to cut his hair or not. And we had talked to Samson or somebody.
They had brought up that it could be a problem.
Right, and
Yeah.
so we thought maybe it could be a problem, but we had talked to Samson, and Samson was like it was going to be okay or whatever it was, and so he decided not to, and was going to wear it in a ponytail or whatever. And so instead of me, you know, just talking about Jesus on the cross, I decided to bring Andrew up and demonstrate what he went through.
And I did keep my hair in a bun, but when he started talking about Jesus, I walk up there, I would let my hair down, and they would cheer when so there was a time in my life where when I let my hair down, a room full of men would cheer for me. and so there's that.
There's that. They also cheered when he got whooped too.
Yes, so the louder. Yeah. Hey, but we are smoked on time here.
Oh, okay.
You got anything else you want to say?
No, I thought it was a great episode.
I feel good about it.
Appreciate
Love you guys.
y'all.